Hello, welcome back to my network. I'm with Vikas Ranjan, the President and CEO of Vortex Metals. Vikas, good to see you.
Good to see you, Peter.
For those less familiar, brief company overview.
So Vortex is early stage exploration company. Our projects are in the state of Oaxaca, Mexico. We are exploring for volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits in Oaxaca state.
Brilliant. And before we get into the geology and the deposits, just capital structure at the moment.
We are a public company listed on Toronto Stock Exchange, Venture Exchange. VMS is our ticker. We have 60 million outstanding shares. Management and founders own about 48% of that, and the rest is owned by investors.
Brilliant. Okay. Just set the scene for us at the moment, because you're a relatively new company. It's early stage exploration. But there's a bit of history behind these licenses. And I was wondering if we could just start off with who discovered these licenses, and maybe you can just give us the background as to what's behind this.
Sure, Peter. So this company, the journey of Vortex is a bit of a bittersweet story, and I will tell you why I say that. You know, the company was founded by late David M. Jones. He was a renowned geologist. He discovered Los Filos, one of the largest deposits in Mexico. The mine is still producing. You know, it has produced more than 7 million ounces of gold and I believe 55 million ounces of silver and counting. He discovered that deposit when he was at Teck Resources as senior geologist. And people say that his new way of looking at those deposits in Guerrero made Guerrero Belt. His geological model was then followed by many others to make more discoveries. So David was, as we say, a mine finder. He then set his sight on next door Oaxaca after he had done his success in Guerrero. And I think by then he had left Teck Resources. He was more in an entrepreneurial mode. He was looking at opportunities. So he saw some things in Oaxaca which was very similar in terms of characteristics as he had seen in Guerrero many years ago in terms of not being explored. So he spent a lot of time there. He did his study. And over time, once he got more confidence, he prepared and staked a lot of mining claims in the state of Oaxaca. Over a number of years, he developed those projects from perspective of geology. And in 2017, he was able to attract Oz Minerals as a joint venture partner to his private company, Acapulco Gold, which owned these mining claims. Oz Minerals and Acapulco spent just over $2 million US doing all the pre-drilling work to get to the stage where this project can be drilled. Unfortunately, Oz had a very strong deadline to drill, and that was later 2019 or as early as late as 2020. And the pandemic happened and everything kind of, halted. So Oz decided to walk away, and the project came back to Acapulco, which David owned. And that is the time when I came into this project. We partnered with David. I come from capital market background. My background involves taking companies public, raising capital, and operational management. So in that partnership, we decided to take the company Acapulco through a reverse takeover public and raise capital for advancing the project. So that's a bit of a background how this all came about. This is early stage, but this is not greenfield. As I mentioned to you, it took 15 years for David since he identified Oaxaca as the place to discover a new deposit and to get to a stage where he was willing and ready to drill. So that's a bit of a background.
So that's where we are now, right? So David's done 15 years of work on this. Yes. I think he's mentioned quite frequently that he believed this is a similar structure or could be a structure just as big, if not bigger than Los Filos. So this is really exciting. So we're now at a point where he sort of got you to the point where you've got the asset, you've got the drill targets.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just talk to us about the background, the groundwork that has been done.
Yes.
And how these drill targets have been identified.
Yes. So as you rightly mentioned, David was very passionate about this project. He really believed that this could be, a major discovery just in the same kind of, way he was able to find Los Filos. Of course, these are two different systems altogether, so there is no comparison in that sense. This is VMS, volcanogenic massive sulfide type of structure we're looking at. So in terms of what happened during those 3 years when the joint venture was with Oz Minerals, most of the geological work, for example, gravity study, geochemical, geophysical study, as well as lots of samplings were done. I believe they took 863 rock samples, 740 soil samples, and it is very impressive. The samples are very mineralized. A sample of samples which we could use for our technical report, I think it's about 200 samples. 10 of those samples have more than 10% copper in it. Now, you can imagine, people get excited with 1-2% copper. I'm not saying this is not drill results. These are samples, but still, the extent of mineralization is so massive and so widespread all over the project. And when you combine that with geological studies like gravity anomaly and geophysics and geochemical studies, then it becomes very potent in terms of drilling prospect. So based on all that, David had personally curated half a dozen very high value targets, which we call East Gossan, West Gossan. Why Gossan? Because Gossan is typical rock, which you see in VMS kind of deposit. And then there is a gravity anomaly, which we call Rhyolite Dome, which is also highly prospective to drill. So these are the areas which we will drill first, as soon as we get the drill permits.
Okay, so talk us through this process. So obviously you're talking there, you need to get the drill permits. What sort of timeline can we expect there? And obviously you've already raised the funds for drilling as well. So I'm assuming you get the permits and the drill rigs start being erected.
Very good question. So absolutely. So getting the drill permit has a two-step process. One is that you have to complete an environmental study, which takes time, and you have to get approval from the community. So we don't own the land. We have mining claims, but we still have to get approval from the community, which owns the land and uses the land. So thankfully, we have done the environmental work. It's complete, ready to go. All we're waiting for is the community approval. Now, we are engaging with the community, very actively. We have a very senior leader for community development and engagement. He has extensive experience working in Mexico, especially in the state of Oaxaca. And we believe that it's a process which we want to be more deliberate about. We don't want to rush it. We want to get the confidence of people so that they are not suspicious of this project. So that is taking a bit of a time, but we think if everything goes well, of course, we should get that approval sometime in January, and then we will submit the drilling application for drill permits, which can take between 3 to 6 months. So if you ask me, as soon as we get the drill permits, can we drill very quickly? Yes, absolutely, because we have the drill targets ready to go. So in terms of timeline, probably we're talking about Q2, Q3 in terms of actual drilling. However, as soon as we get the community approval, we can still do a lot of work on the ground while we're waiting for drill permits. Remember, this is a huge area. We have two projects, Riqueza Marina, which is 12,000 plus hectares, and Yachila, which is 3,400 hectares. We have probably explored, in terms of geological study, only a portion of that. So we still have to do a lot of work, which we can do, including trenching. Now, trenching, as your investors might know, is very important. As you go across samples and take trenches, it could be 50, 100 meters of mineralized trenches. If we find that will give us even more confidence to drill where we want to drill. So those type of work we can do still, starting in Jan-Feb timeframe.
So is the idea with the trenches that you would do these on the 5 targets
Yes.
that
we will
already
choose some of those targets to do the trenching. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. And obviously, like I said, you completed a finance last year.
Yeah.
4 million Canadian dollars.
That's correct.
I guess what I'm trying to get my head around is obviously how much of that is still left in the bank,
Sure.
and if the drilling's going to be potentially Q2, Q3 next year. Mm-hmm. how many meters can we expect, and what will the burn rates until then to make sure that you can get the most out of that?
Absolutely. So we raised just around 4.3 million Canadian. We estimate our budget for the first phase of drilling to be around 1.2 million US. So give or take 1.5 Canadian is what we estimate. I always like to add a little bit more buffer to that. So let's say 1.5 to 2 million in that range Canadian. Thankfully, we raised enough money for the first phase of drilling, which is expected to be between 4,000 meters to 5,000 meters. We are very lean, so we don't spend too much money on G&A. We want to put as much money in the ground. So we are well placed from that perspective to be able to do the first phase of drilling without having to go back to the market.
Obviously, following the late David Jones, he's done all of the groundwork so far. And like you said, you've got these 5 targets. Yep. He's really curated the best possible opportunity for you to actually go and discover these deposits. But who can carry on this legacy? Who have you got technically in-house that can really carry on the baton and fulfill this?
Very good question, Peter. So losing David was a terrible loss. Hard to fill that gap. But the silver lining is that David's brilliance was to put this package together, do all the work to get to the stage where it is drill ready, and he had a lot of confidence in his ability to pick these targets. So David's good friend, Rob Johansson, he is our senior geologist. He wrote our technical NI 43-101 report. He is carrying the baton. He is the lead geologist who will carry the exploration activity when we drill, and also other related work in the field. In addition to Rob, we have our technical advisor, head of technical advisory is Dr. Jim Franklin. He is a foremost VMS expert. Jim has spent quite a bit of time on these projects, and he was also a very good friend of David, so David brought him to study the project from VMS perspective, and he is very bullish on the prospect of these projects. As a matter of fact, he is quoted in our technical report saying that he believes this is a VMS district, and we got to drill it to establish that. In addition, we have on our board John Larson, again, very, very senior geologist, 40-year plus, has worked at major companies, and he's also very helpful in terms of, for us to, carry on the exploration work. On the management side, finance capital side, we have myself. Of course, my background is capital markets and as I mentioned, operational management, but I also have our executive chairman, Mike Williams, a known mining executive. Michael Williams has a background in mining finance. He built and sold Underworld Resources to Kinross about 10, 12 years ago. He's currently involved with a couple of other opportunities in the mining space, including Aftermath Silver, which is a very prospective project. So we have a fantastic team to carry the legacy from technical as well as from business perspective.
Obviously, one of the hardest challenges for a pre-resource or even pre-drilling company is access to capital.
That's correct.
Obviously, you do already have cash in the bank to fill this drilling program, but how are you placed to actually access capital moving forward?
Yes. So again, we believe that the first raise wasn't difficult. We raised our capital in October of 2021, not particularly the most bullish market. Why we were able to do that? Because we have a close network of financiers who are close to us and believe in us. And also because they are smart, they could see the potential of discovery. Look, as an investor, I have seen lots of companies do well, and there is an evolution in the stock price. When you make a discovery, that is when probably you get the biggest lift. Now, what we are trying to do is to test that thesis that we have a deposit. Hopefully, the drilling, which we do, comes back with good results. What success will look like, getting some good intercepts with a couple of, 2, 3, 4% copper, 20, 30 meters. That will give us the confidence to go back to the market. And believe me, if we do that, smart people will be able to understand what we got here. Our market cap is nothing. It's 6 million Canadian with 2.5 to 2.7 million cash sitting in the bank. So we will raise more capital at a much higher valuation, however, and that will give us an ability to further explore and establish a deposit over time.
No, I'm a big believer of value for the drill bit. Yes. What's the next 12 months looking like? I know we have discussed most of it already, but just for those looking, what are the key catalysts that people need to be really looking out for?
Very good question. So as I mentioned, we are deeply engaged with the community. Getting their consent, getting their approval will be a major milestone. And I'm hoping that we will get that, fingers crossed, but Jan-Feb timeframe. That will give us access to the project. Not that we cannot do work right now, but just better to get their formal approval and then start to do field work while, waiting for drilling permits. So as soon as we get the community approval, we drop that into the package. Package is ready to go. We submit that with SEMARNAT, which is the mining authority, which gives us permit. While we are waiting for their assessment, which takes 3 to 6 months, hopefully we are lucky, we get in 3 months, who knows. In the meantime, we are working. And the work we do, Peter, that will generate a lot of news flow as well. Remember, a lot of junior mining companies, they just got land package. They haven't done any work. It takes 3, 4, 5 years before they are ready to properly drill. And they have to spend quite a bit of money getting to that stage. We are already at that stage. So in terms of next 12 months, I would say that getting community approval, submitting our application for drill permits, starting the field work, and eventually getting the drill permits and then drilling, these would be major catalysts for the stock.
Brilliant. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter.